Good morning. Yeah, we were supposed to have somebody from the UK to come and talk about 3D 3D printing, especially in the area of pre-operation. They are using it more and more, but he cancelled at the last minute. He just cancelled at the last minute, and we couldn't cancel the function today. There is so much to discuss, especially after the UNCTAD. But because he's going to come, I think he will come next month. I want to show you maybe a video on where medicine has reached. What usually happens is when they take a scan, maybe you have a problem with your spine. They see where the problem is. Still, most surgeons would go in to explore what they can do. But that stage is being removed by 3D print, meaning that they would take an MRI and you reproduce the spine through the print. They play around on how they are going to repair the place. Then they go in once. You've had patients go, the doctor says we would just do the operation to explore. And then 3 days later, they go in to do the real thing. That is being removed by the 3D print. And more is going to happen here because he's here to promote that. If you look at YouTube videos, this is what is happening. Because you are in the tech sector, it doesn't mean that you need specialized training. Once you have a 3D image of something, you actually transfer it to the computer and the 3D printer prints it. Then the doctors can play around with it. Even in operations for heart surgery, I've seen one, it was on CNN. They take the scan and they reproduce the exact thing, and the doctors now play around, this is what we'll do, and then they go in once. That has cut the cost of healthcare by so much. And that was, I thought that if we went through it, we begin to understand how we can work with the doctors here to cut the cost of healthcare. Unfortunately, he had to go somewhere, so he cancelled. But even before I got Paul, it's called Paul, to come and speak, we had made arrangements that the Innovation Week at the University of Nairobi, which starts on 1st of August to 5th of August, we have been looking, actually, I did an article in the Business Daily. We've been looking for people who have challenges, people who have lost an arm, people who have lost a leg. We call it the challenge. We were going to have what is called a mechathon, where a team from Israel, we now cooperate with 2 universities in Israel. This is Technion University and University of Tel Aviv. So we were there last year. They said they will come here. They will be here in August, but we did not get the challenge. So still I'm looking for the challenge. If you know somebody who has who doesn't have maybe one limb, and even there are some complicated areas where the challenge is, like kids with paraplegic. We finally managed to get 2 in Kibra who can be assisted by doing a 3D print of some assistive material. If we get enough number, we didn't get enough number to do it in August, but they are willing to come back. They will come and make a presentation at the Innovation Week, But afterwards, like 2 months down the road, they would come, then we would have a hackathon and see the use of 3D in real life on assisting several people. In fact, what Paul was going to show you are some of the limbs that they have been able to print, and the back, the spine, they have printed and helped in surgery. But he probably would be here next month because he terribly apologized for that. Maybe we look at one video because I'm really passionate about this, that people can begin to change the thinking of the doctors, that they can reduce the cost of surgery by leveraging technology that has come and which we are not using to do that. I know in the US, even dental work, now they are using 3D to do that. I don't know how many of you have explored 3D to do that. You have explored. Even locally, we have people who are doing spare parts. There are two young men on Kericho Road who do actually spare parts, rare spare parts. They print those things. That's what I wanted this week, that we get to learn, but we can wait 1 more month and get him to come, and probably then I can get two or three people so that we begin to see the application of 3D printing such that some of our young people without jobs could find something to do with in the field of medicine. And at the same time, this is an advert I'm making. If there is somebody who has a challenge, we can put them down for the hackathon that we are planning to have. We are raising money from various companies, so it won't cost anything. It's just to see that somebody is able to do that, to benefit from the technology. So I stopped that there. So I came and I said, one of the main problems that we saw at the UNCTAD, the conference that has been messing us up with traffic in Nairobi, is that there are several deals that are made at that level. But unfortunately, the people who need it, like yourselves, that information doesn't get to you. And then I said, maybe I'll break it down to the level where you can understand where the problems are and see whether we can benefit from such deals. Africa has had so many deals that they have signed with many countries. One of the big deals that Africa signed was the Clintonese Africa Growth Opportunity Act, which is called AGOA. And that has a potential of billions of dollars, but it has never been exploited, simply because people don't understand how to take advantage of such a trade deal. We've been negotiating with Europe, trade deals, Africa Pacific with Europe, several trade deals, nobody exploits. If you look at the AGOA, what has only been exploited is actually textile, and nothing else. If we look through, there are 7,000 items that needs to be exploited. But there are some things, very simple things, that Africa is not doing in order to take advantage. One of the biggest problems here in Africa, and I would say general Africa, is that we have not used big data to understand ourselves and understand the rest of the world. Big data in the sense that, let me give you a good example so that you see how shameful it is. Recently, there was an article in the paper that we are buying Chinese fish in Kisumu. Did any one of you saw that? Yes? The politicians rushed to say, this is the worst thing that can happen. How can we buy Chinese fish when we have fish? The fact is, we don't have fish in Lake Victoria. And this goes back to the things that people talk about, we don't take seriously. Sustainability of some of the enterprises. So when our people go to fish, those who don't have money to buy the right nets for catching fish, they actually take their mosquito nets. The mosquito net actually takes the fish plus the eggs, meaning next time you go back, you have no fish because you took the eggs, isn't it? I mean, the article I wrote, I put several articles that I've looked at that we have depleted the lake to the extent that we have no sustainability of the lake anymore. And the Chinese, because they use big data, they know that Kenya consumes about 800 tons of fish, 800,000 tons of fish a year. And whatever we can produce, even all of us go to fish, we could produce only 400,000 tons. There is a deficit. Yeah? If we understood that deficit, then we can begin to think about commercial fishing, especially in the Indian Ocean. But what you see in the Indian Ocean is 2-3 men who go and they catch one fish and they come hang it and show that we caught a big fish, you know. There are some programs you see at the National Geographic. You see people go do fishing, commercial fishing, and they're looking at like 200,000 tons of a specific fish. So we have not changed our mindset to economies of scale and understanding the trends within our country or within the continent, and they begin to feed the continent itself. That's how China can get the fish from China, and it lands in Kisumu, and it's cheaper than the fish caught in Kisumu. Why? Because Lake Victoria has, from Kenya side, every morning there are 70,000 boats which go fishing, you know, and they come with like 20, 30 kilos of fish. The cost is enormous. China goes to fish with 3 people, and they bring back like 20,000 tons. The cost is much lower. I think we must begin to talk about the word productivity must be simplified to the level where our people understand what productivity is. And I've looked every vernacular, that word is not available. If they don't understand productivity, they would still be doing things very expensively, because we still find South African eggs in Kenya cheaper than eggs produced in Murang'a. Yeah? It's because we have not begun to think deeply on enterprise and the costs. You see? Somebody gets 2 trays of eggs in Murang'a and brings them to Nairobi. Cost him 300 to 400 shillings to transport the 2 trays here. You see? One person in South Africa is doing almost 1,000 trays. And if you divide 300 by 60, which is the 2 trays, you find there is a 5 shilling cost to every egg. And the South African is doing like 50 cents. So even if he flies it here, it will be far much cheaper than our eggs. Until we go down and explain to our people about the economies of scale, how to be more productive, we would still be dependent on other parts of the world to feed us. And that is the tragedy, that everything that we do and the trend that we have taken, especially in farming, where we are looking at subsistence farming, it's not going to take us anywhere. That you go and plant maize on a half acre, you will never break even from a half acre. You are wasting your resources on that half acre. I don't know how we can preach to our people to understand around issues around productivity, around economies of scale. And the more we talk about, the more people split the land into uneconomical pieces, and we are struggling. So in the next 5 years, China would feed Africa if we don't begin to think. So even if you make noise, the members of parliament made noise. But if Chinese don't bring fish to Kisumu, there will be war, because there is no fish in the lake, and that's what people want to eat. It's a shame that we are not looking at environment, our production methods, whether we are competitive against other people from other places. Are we exploiting the opportunities that exist? Let me move a little ahead, then we can all begin to discuss. One of the things that emerged, and one of the agreements they signed, is to look for which ways we can finance African trade. This is where the weakest point is, that trade finance is usually not available to Africa. The demand for it, people who go looking for money to fund exports, stands at 120 billion US dollars. They can't get, because nobody knows you. You create a company today, you get an order from Europe, and you go looking for money, and nobody gives you the money. So the total rejections stand at 120 billion. The opportunity gap is beyond $400 billion. That if we actually brought in that 400 billion, our poverty would go down. Yeah? So we exploit very little of what the opportunities give. You see, East Africa is beginning to negotiate the EU-East African deal, which has not been signed. Even when it is signed, we would only exploit like a third of that deal. Because when farms go to look for money, they are not able to get the money. So what can we do to be able to access the money? There are so many things from the policy side, and some things that we can do on ourselves. So I took it upon myself to go and talk to bigger financiers in this town and said, we can do what India has done. India now rates the small enterprises. Like you see, Standard & Poor's rates countries, they put you like you are A something, and those who finance globally know that there is less risk when you find somebody who is at A or AA and stuff. We must begin to do that with the local firms. And local firms must agree to get into that arrangement so that they are known outside there that they can be able to do that. This is happening. Even those unknown ones, when they are given money, they actually repay 100%. But when the global financial crisis happened, all African countries celebrated, oh, it didn't affect us. It is affecting us now because those global financiers are not financing Africa. Even when there is a glut in the corporates globally, there is so much money for them to borrow that they have not been able to move lower because of the risk levels. How do we minimize the risk? We should stop the nonsense of meeting at AU and create insurance for risk so that you split, you share the risk and provide the resources to the exporters. And that's how we can create jobs. But we continue, this got finished yesterday here. The resolutions that were made, we need to have local resolutions and say, this is what we need the government to do to give us credit insurance so that we access the resources. So every time we talk about the youth and the youth funds and stuff, we need to look at the bigger things. We need to look at the bigger things. The WTO meeting had some strange agreements that Europe accepted to remove subsidy from the farmers. They did so because of the environment, that they spend so much to grow crops during winter. And because of that, the emission levels go up. Meaning that they have accepted that during winter, Africa could feed them. And nobody came to tell us that the Europeans have accepted that instead of spending so much to grow one cabbage, they want Africans to grow and export it to Europe. None of us know. None of us was told that it was so strange that Europe accepted that. We should have known it last year. And this year, we would have prepared to actually begin to do that. But we didn't. Nobody knows. Nobody remembers that that happened. And so we still remain ignorant about such trade deals. And I think we should now go point by point. Today, just that there was cancellation and I said I must get something. I think we would get treaty by treaty and break it down and see where do we exploit. And these are the areas that we can exploit. How do we exploit them? And so that we bring that knowledge from these high-level meetings to the ordinary people who can actually now take it to the farm and begin to change it. The global dynamics, the trends that are happening globally also need to be part of what is happening. In my speech at UNCTAD, I gave an example that innovation started in Europe, moved to US, moved to Japan, Korea, China. Now the Indians have taken from China because China is moving up the value chain and India is taking. Do we wait until India is full and then we come? That's a question. Do we fight India or we wait until their people are rich? Hello? We compete, we fight, because we have a lot of young people with good knowledge. We should actually know China is shedding off 85 million jobs at the low end of manufacturing because they are moving up the value chain. We need those jobs here. And how do we exploit that opportunity? That's what we need to solve and begin to take forward. That India, now when you see the advert of India on CNN, is make it India. They have a lion with so many things, make it India. China was the factory of the whole world, has been there moved millions of people out of poverty. And India has seen the opportunity. We must go to China and say, let's do the partnerships and take some of those jobs to Africa, and they should not go to India. But all the time, we lose this opportunity. We lose this opportunity. We had 3 companies which had come and said, we can competitively produce the mobile handset here than in India. And we dilly-dallied, we can't give them land, we can't land, whatever. They moved to Ethiopia. 2 weeks they had land. Ethiopia now makes 25% of the mobile handsets for Africa. You see, we lose opportunity. We lose opportunity. And until you begin to make something, you will never wake up one day and make that thing. There is something we call in operations management the learning curve. So we must make some funny phone today, and in the next 5 years, we keep on perfecting it until we are able to clearly make a competitive, we can be competitive in that space and make the phones. But we are not doing it. You would not wake up one day and make the vehicle. Huh? If you've had, and I've said it here before, Ford had Model A, Model whatever, up to Model T. Why? Because the first one they made, they looked at the horse pulling the cart, and they made it. Unfortunately, there were no brakes. So you go, you find a forest, and they stop it there. So, but they were resilient, and they moved on to put the handbrake. You put the handbrake, everybody flies, falls to the front, and they put the safety belt. You see how the learning curve helps you. We must begin to do some of those things so that in the next 5 years, we are competitive enough, we can create more jobs in Africa. One of the things that also came up was that, and I emphasized it here all the time, is that we have failed in the area of standardization. To standardize so that we are able to exploit certain opportunities. Yeah? People ask, why is Kentucky Fried Chicken not buying our potatoes? They have to buy potatoes that fit into their billing machine, and you have to grow them in a certain way because they don't want to buy multiple billing machines. So when you get a potato from Molo, it is gone like this and that. Even if you try to peel it, it is not peelable. So we cannot compete in that way. We must ask them, what is it that you do to produce a potato that looks like this? So we go back to do that. Or the government can say, train the people to produce for you the potatoes. So there are so many levels that we need to ask. Even the youth, when you go to ask, you must ask something with some knowledge, and then the solution comes. So I don't want to talk myself. I have my friend here, Bernard, who is a serious entrepreneur, and then they can ask he's one of the largest systems integrators in this country. So,
good morning, everybody. My name is Ben Joroge, the team leader in Indian Group. Indian Group is a ICT, telecom, and energy integrator, whereby we integrate systems for companies like Safaricom. I'm happy that I have one of my customers here. He came to see me and say, come and listen to what the professor is saying. We have been doing this business for the last 8 years, doing integration for the big companies like Safaricom, and also we are the gateway of multinational companies which want to bring their technology here. We present a company like General Electric from America in their power system. Also, we represent companies from India and also companies from other parts of Europe. Then now, we have been running the company for the last 8 years, and we feel that is the time we require to shift our gears and change the company. We are supporting about 250 employees managing the system in Kenya. So we want to know how can we leverage on this and make the company bigger. Also, you have a special program whereby we realize that our universities, they don't produce good engineers. And how do we beat the curve? We managed to come up with a program in our office whereby we partner with the universities and make sure that immediately we graduate in electrical engineering, we can give you hands-on training. Whereby we take 15 students from University of Nairobi, 15 from Jomo Kenyatta, and about 10 from 2 polytechnics in Kenya. During the 3 months training, we give them practical and we take them through to how is the life inside a working company. Then we release them to the market. That's what we are doing to contribute as a CSR to the community. And we are involving Professor to turn around the company because they have seen it all. And Lende, I think, if at all you see somebody who can be able to help us to take us to the next level, we are ready willing to partner with you guys. I'll take my time to introduce this gentleman who have been fighting me to tell me about how I need to change my company. He's a senior engineer in Safaricom. He's one of the best transmission engineer in Africa. His name is David Odhiambo. When you talk about transmission, he can be able to tell you how transmission can be able to come from Cairo to Johannesburg. Okay? David.
Wow. Today I was not meant to speak, but now that it's decided that I have to speak, my name is David Odhiambo. I'm a senior manager in Safaricom in charge of transport and IP engineering. Yes, so I've been listening here and I'll wade off the technical part of it. And I'll just focus on the kind of team that I'm seeing around. Sometimes it's good to see a group of young people who have just decided that they want to chart their own destiny and find a way in terms of how to contribute to society. And with the good work that the professor is doing, you know, what I always ask, 20 or 30 years later, assume it's your last day to go. What is the last word that you want people to remember you with? In your eulogy, what do you want people to say about you? How many lives you touched? What you'll notice is not about the car that you owned, is not about the nice house that you had, neither is it about how much money you had. In fact, all those things will go away. But it's the impact you did with the skills that you had, with opportunities that presented themselves, that will actually count. True or false? So for whichever thing you guys commit to do, know at the end of the day, you are here to serve humanity. And the service you have is what will count at the end of the day. The sacrifices you do, it will only count out at the end of the day in terms of the impact it does in one way or the other. In terms of whether improving the way of life for people, helping people to access better medical services, or helping 2 or 3 people to move away from poverty, or educating people, helping people to be educated fast enough, or so that they can also create opportunities for others. So you're at the apex of that, decision to make. And you have a lot ahead of you. As you wade through the journey of discovering what to do, how to do it well, the back of the mind realize or always have in mind that I want to serve a society, I want to serve a community, and the impact I'll create is what matters. And that is what Ben is telling you. He is presenting opportunity for you or for people around campuses and so on, so that they can access his company to get internship, and then they will actually be better people tomorrow, or they'll be able to access opportunities and be able to educate their kids. So that ripple effect continues over and over. And that's how we grow a society. So it's nice, guys, having you, nice seeing you. Very charmed up. Please continue in the struggle. Thank you.
So Ben has employed 250. If 3 of you employ 350, 250, 350, we can finish unemployment in this country. Actually, this is what, but always when we say we give money to the youth fund, and I think we need to come and say, let's break it down. What is it that we can do? Yeah? The what? Some questions. Yeah. Okay. They would ask you questions.
Hello, my name is Judy. So I have a question, but it's generally about what you spoke about. Yeah. The first one was about making Kenya innovative, like creating an ecosystem of innovation. So my question to you was, what steps can we take to get there? Especially, how can we take advantage of the youth bulge, where they're saying like by 2050, half the youth population will be in Africa. Yeah. So how can we take advantage of that and create a lot of innovation going on? Yeah. And then my second question is about big data. Yeah. And you said that we need to take advantage of big data in Kenya. So my question is, do people even know how to get... Okay, is there big data one in Kenya? Is anybody collecting it? And is anybody analyzing it? Because I was told recently that Safaricom outsources their big data to South Africa because there's no company that can handle their big data. So are there any Kenyan companies that are actually can deal with the data that Safaricom has, like to that extent?
No, the Safaricom is false. Because I'm involved in...
Oh, okay.
They're doing it with IBM locally. Uh-huh. The reason why we persuaded IBM to create a lab here was that we create capacity locally to analyze the data, So it will be done locally, and people would begin to benefit from it. Probably what's going to come out is that probably Safaricom would have the best story of the people that can be lent money, because they give you money, 1 million for business, mm-hmm. and they know who repays. These are people that normal banks cannot give money. So they're building something that no bank has, and probably will lead to new business models. But big data, I have had a cold the whole week, that's why. Big data is the next oil for many countries. Once you understand it, you are a step ahead of everybody. There are several sources of it, but you just have to be alert and understand how it is. If you understand big data around food itself, you will become a multi-billionaire. Do you know how much beans we consume? We consume almost 1 million tons of it. But we produce 300,000 tons. Where does the rest come from? Comes from Tanzania, Uganda. And the Kenyans don't know that. They would rather grow sugarcane where there is no competitiveness, and they don't grow the beans. So if we begin to understand big data, we'll probably tell the farmers, forget about this, grow this, because you would make much more money about it. Nobody has done that. So we keep on growing maize when people are eating wheat, These are the problems that we have, very important. Around innovation, you had two questions, one on big data and innovation. Innovation, this country has a huge opportunity to do that. Until we look at our youth as an opportunity. Right now, we look at the youth as a problem. And that's something that needs to change. As an opportunity, because we have a population, that's what we call population dividend. Most countries in Europe have a population deficit, but it's causing chaos in Europe. The refugees who are moving to Europe, because some countries in Europe, Germany, for example, requires almost 1 million people to keep their factories working. But this is not going down well because people are not used to many people, refugees coming in. What can we do? We leverage Internet of Things such that we can keep the factories in Germany going without us going to Germany. But there is no coordination, and from where should we do it? From where should we do it? I did an article for this Monday, on the Nation Online, to show how we can begin to show the world that we are good with 3D, with Internet of Things. We shouldn't be having accidents in Salga, and we have many people who have no job. I mean, it doesn't make sense. We must make those buses. We must force the owners of those vehicles to put sensors of all kinds in the vehicle, such that we can tell what is happening in that vehicle and is being monitored somewhere. If the driver is asleep and driving, you can disable the vehicle and it stops. You save the lives of people. Or if the driver is drunk, you can disable the vehicle until a driver who is not. So many people don't know we have electronic noses. How many of you know that? Well, just one. That you put that in the car. I've invested in Matatu also. And one day I went to the stage. I found the driver stoned, had taken marijuana. And I said, my friend, you can't drive this thing. The conductors were laughing at me. He said, everybody smokes marijuana at night because it removes baridi, you know? And I said, he can't drive this thing, yeah? So we are dying on the road. We have people who are unemployed. Insurance is paying so much on this. We would convert those resources to paying people leveraging on Internet of Things. We have never explained what the hell is Internet of Things. How can we monetize Internet of Things? Such meetings is where we now begin to create enterprises out of new technologies and be able to show the world we can do it such that we can run the factories in other parts of the world. So we can innovate, we can have the confidence to move ahead of other parts. But the coordination is the problem. How do we get everybody to buy this? Yeah. Yes.
Thank you, Professor. I've resonated with a lot of the things you've said today. And just to add to the conversation, because you said this is a discussion, I had a few points I wanted to bring up. The first thing is, from my observations and from working as an entrepreneur, my name is Nathan. I work for a company called After Six Labs. We build apps, games, and systems. And we found that from just observing how Kenya works, if a system is broken and remains broken, we found that it's because someone is benefiting from the broken system. And so it's not in their interest to fix the problems in those systems. So like when you mention agriculture, one of the big things, because we tried to do something with coffee, and you find coffee is one of those places where when it comes from the farm to, you know, what we call the black box, where nothing, no one knows what's happening in the middle, and then it ends up in the end place. There's people who have interests there who don't benefit from it being a transparent process. To add to that, a question that I think the group can think of is: do you know of any country that has benefited from aid? A country that became like a powerful state from aid. I can mention two: Japan and Germany, because after World War II, they got a lot of aid from the US and the rest of the world, and now they're the top economic blocks in their various regions. And this is because of good policy. When you don't have good policy at the top, it eats at the opportunities that are available for the rest of the country. Another point is, Ben, you mentioned your company. I'm very interested to find out how you managed to achieve the success you have, because the rhetoric in Kenya is you can't get ahead unless you know someone or you have the under-table deals and all that stuff. It would be nice to hear if there is a different way where hardworking Kenyans who want to actually build the country can get these opportunities and build successful companies without losing that moral, ethical ground of doing it the right way, being given the job because of quality rather than because you know someone. Another thing is, for the iHub crowd, because they'll understand this, the tech world is moving where you're employing fewer people but getting greater rewards. A good example is like WhatsApp. They have a team of 17 people, but their company is valued at $19 billion. So we're no longer in that era where we would be employing 200 or 10,000 people to make it big. You can do it with a small team. How do we mitigate that such that multiple small teams can achieve that success? And lastly, just to agree with Ben, one thing we say is people are unemployed in Kenya because they're unemployable. The skills gap that he's mentioned is very real. And I applaud the efforts that you're putting in. How can we make it wider and cast the net wider? Thank you.
Ben, you want to?
It is possible. First of all, when I started the company, I realized that the moment you start a company, if you start 10 companies today, 5 would die before the age of 3 years. The rest, the other 2 entrepreneurs who have changed the name within the next 2 years. Then I decided that which path should I do? I decided that I'm here to stay. And also I started something which I'm not in, don't require, that's the time I saw an article in the newspaper that you don't require to be a doctor to run Nairobi Hospital or Kenyatta National Hospital. I manage an engineering firm, and my background is marketing. I have about 110 engineers, but my background is marketing. How do you bring the team together? How do you understand the team operate and push them to the next level? Secondly, know how to say no. If you know that this project, you cannot do it and you have been asked for a bribe, just say no. I know it's very difficult, but I've paid the price. But because I know where I'm going, I had to say no. And also, you don't require money to start a business. You just require to have an idea. I started my business with 100,000, and I did not have money, I did not have an idea. Surround yourself with the people who understand either financial matters, and also be open. The most important thing, you must prepare to make a brand. You, as the founder of the company, you must be a brand before you go. Your company is trusted. You must be. The moment you mention Ben, how do they associate with you? When I walk into the shoes of a Safaricom, how do they say about it? And how do they compare me? When I started this business in Safaricom was always be done by white people. And I tried to ask very many people, I want to penetrate this. They say, this is for cowboy business, and you have no capacity, you have nothing. Those guys who are surprised, a partner of Safaricom who could not shake my hands 5 years ago, they don't talk when I am talking. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. I think we should acknowledge your efforts because there are very few people who do this. My question takes you back to the big data. Don't you think the problem is the digitalization of systems. That's a main source of the lack of big data. And even if we had access to them, for example, you said about consumption of beans, where can I even start to access that data?
Actually, even myself, I didn't know until I met Professor Kimani and they said, Kimani, what is with beans? Then he gave me numbers from his head because that is his life. I mean, he's an agronomist and he understands this. I think when we started Kenya Open Data, we thought that we could get every piece of data and put it there. This data must be available to every Kenyan such that when you plan to do a business, you can go somewhere and find, is there a market for what I want to do? What can I do? What is it that I can do? And in some way, we don't ask questions, who can give me this? A lot of faculties here have too much data. A lot of NGOs have a lot of data. USAID has more data than the Kenyan government. I didn't know that we cannot supply enough meat to Nairobi. Yeah? On a daily basis, we consume 4,000 cows and some 6,000 goats daily. Then you begin to know that if I can grow some mbuzi in Kitui, I have a market, a ready market in Nairobi to sell it. But you see, we don't have that. So we do everything in the dark. It's our role now to begin to show this is what's happening. This is the gap we must fill. We traveled to Qatar with the former president, and they were asking for meat. So the president says there is a lot of meat in Kenya, you know. They said we could start with 1,000 tons per month. We came here, we could not raise 100 tons a month. Just understand that. We could not raise 100 tons because the consumption locally here is beyond the roof. Yeah? If you go to Naivasha, there's more than that, which produces first grade meat. They can't export because all 5-star hotels have placed orders for the whole year. Why haven't we gone to fatten cows and do exactly like more than that? And we are here looking for jobs. There is so much land outside there. You know, these are the questions that I visited some young, actually two people in Bahati Nakuru, and I actually wrote that article. One is from China, the other one is from the US. One grows onions, the other one grows tomatoes. The one who grows onions had 1 hectare. He harvested 30,000 tons from 1 hectare. From 1 hectare. And the American was doing almost 50,000. And they were disappointed because Israel does 300 tons, actually said 300 tons from 1 hectare. Do you know the average we do ourselves? It's not even 10 tons. It's 5 to 10. Yeah? 10 tons of tomatoes from 1 hectare. We don't ask, what is it that I can do to maximize production from 1 hectare? And then I did a stupid thing. The whole place from where I was, I don't know, mile Kumi to Nakuru, I stopped at every mile. You know, there's a shopping center every mile, asking people, how much land do you have? 20 acres. What do you put there? I have cows, I have whatever. And how much money do you make? 200,000. This foreigner has 1 hectare, 2.5 acres, doing 25 million. Our people are doing 200,000 and they are satisfied because they don't have information. Because they don't have information. In India, when you have a 1/4 acre, you are a rich man. You are a very rich man because from 1/4 acre, they are able to produce, to do almost 10 million with chicken alone. So we have the resources, we don't have the information, and then we say we are poor. We are poor by choice. I think it's a question that we are not asking. Such fora would give you the data. When I don't get data, if you Google data on Kenya cereals, you would actually find it there. Mundia, the World Bank, you can get all this data and begin to ask yourself questions. Why haven't we doing this? Why are we not exploiting these opportunities? So my frustration is that how to get you angry enough that we begin to do something out of these numbers which are making us look foolish in the face of the world, that we are not exploiting this. Yeah.
Okay, it's quite an interesting question on the big data. Firstly, maybe just to clarify, as the professor said, at Safaricom, we've invested big in big data. We have what we call a custom experience management, which is a very big system, almost $5 million system, just to be able to analyze the data we have. And I'll just give you an example. Today, we have distribution channel. We have how many? Over 40,000 or so dealers across board, who either own dealers or people in M-Pesa shops. You know, with those M-Pesa shops, what happens? People go there. People go there, deposit money, they go home. They go home. There's a trend you can see. You can see how much they always deposit, and you can also know where that money always goes to. Assume you reuse the same distribution channel to now see, again, you know what they've been doing in terms of whether buying something or so forth. To now know where to position. Assume you use the data to know how to position goods. If these people always send it to Nairobi to buy something and goes back, assume you now use it to consolidate that effort and go and set up a shop that can sell that particular item close to them. Just an example. The challenge we have as those who the techie world, we do a lockdown thought where we think everything in the technical world. We never want to go out of our comfort zone. The questions we are trying to address are questions of basic things that you meet on a daily basis. You ask why. You stay in a place where there's always no water, but you assume it's normal, you come and do nice programs and you go on. Assume you ask why. In the end of it, you realize probably the way this pipe was actually done is why we never get water, or because there are a lot of people around the chain. Nobody had ever thought that these people, by the time they are settling or they are building flats, nobody had ever thought that we also needed to extend or open up a big pipe so that these people can be able to get water. Somebody never asked that question. But then maybe using a technology or something else much better, you can do analysis out of asking why out of your industry, and now connect a need to a solution. So unless we go out and either ask the same way the professor is telling you about in agriculture, you see a problem, there's a shortage somewhere, and then you try to ask why. At the end of the day, you'll get a lot of information that you can now use to connect the dots and now know that I need to develop this solution because I have enough data about this, and this is actually going to be something that I can replicate across board. So in thinking in a particular field is what kills us, because we think IT can survive or techie can survive alone. We are there to solve a problem, a particular problem, and that is how we thrive. So unless we go out of our way to an industry that we are uncomfortable with and ask the basic questions, then that's where we continue mining this data. The idea of asking is now this, that is what helps you to be able to craft a solution. Thank you.
Did we answer that question? who answered the question. Yeah.
Hello. I've had trouble accessing the data/information. Like, for example, yesterday I went to Calro. I wanted to find out information on, because I already established that some farmers have problem with marketing their products. So I had to establish if suppliers have trouble getting the fruits and the vegetables. So I went to Calro to talk to the farm manager, but you find the person was a bit, yeah, first of all, he didn't have an idea, and also he was a bit guarded, because I approached him as a business, like doing research. So he was scared that, we might take over their business. And he also took me to another NGO within Calro called Farm Concern, but also from them they're like, you call this number so that we can arrange a meeting, and you need a letter from the school to to say that you're actually doing the research.
I'll give you a letter.
Yeah, so you find like the last time we went there a while back, when you approached them as a school doing research, they were really ready to give us information. But as a business, they're like really guarded.
It's our culture. When you go to Nakumat, you see a lot of apples, isn't it? Where do they come from? From South Africa. Do we not have land here? We don't have land to grow. We get land. We get some apples from Limuru. You see some in Limuru, but that's too tiny. But why haven't we exploited that when apples are? The Carolo is supposed to be providing us with the data. I actually followed. I went to the headquarters. They sent me to Thika. I drove to Thika. It is very sorry. It's very sad that they can't give you information which they are supposed to give. And this is where we need to have a legislation that their role is to provide us with data to make us competitive. We tried to release a lot of data when we were in government, but still there is so much data. But as I told you, a lot of that data is with NGOs. They know, they collect, they do. We have a lot of very good data from NGOs that we can use. The good thing, Google, just ask Google how much does Kenya consume of this product. You find some NGO somewhere had put a report somewhere, and you get some number and then compare with with the annual economic survey. They also have some numbers. That's how I do my verification. Then I get the numbers. So there are some sources, but we need to perfect them and provide the information. Question?
Okay. Thank you so much, Professor, and for continuing to be an eye-opener on so many fields. I asked several questions pertaining agriculture because I have an interest in it so much. And actually, we were known before that Africa is actually the backbone of agriculture. But in the real sense, we don't see it. Because for one, so many farmers, you said about the statistics that we have beans or even meat, but in the do the locals actually understand or know that there is that shortage? Because what we find actually, if you go down to the farmers, there is a shortage in beans, there is a shortage. They actually produce more beans, maize, but you find that most of them go bad in their stores with weevils and such. Because maybe the market is flooded at a particular point.
Market has never been flooded. It is the distribution. It is the distribution that is a problem. Whenever there is maize surplus in North Rift, you find in Eastern they have nothing to eat. It's just that we don't think beyond where we are standing, that somebody somewhere could be requiring this somewhere. And that's why the point I was going to make after is, as young people, you actually need to understand what we call global value chains. How do you plug into those so that you become the conduit through which surplus can be channeled, and you save what gets wasted here because people think that the market is saturated. Number two, we've politicized agriculture. For example, the subsidies in the North Rift, farmers think the government is the only buyer of the crop. I think if the subsidies are removed and the market opened up, the farmers would get more money. But subsidy has made them very dependent on government. I did something on NCPP last 2 weeks ago, and I was surprised when a farmer called and said, actually, this is what we need to do. We need to understand who consumes maize and where is it consumed. Then we begin to tell the farmers, this is the only country where weevils compete with humans in eating maize. You know, much of it weevils eat as the farmers are waiting to be helped. But we need to begin to understand those dynamics, because at times we have a shortage and we should be importing from Tanzania, but because of the politics, we say Tanzanian maize is bad, it can't come to Kenya here. We have also remained with about 3 or 4 products out of maize. You can either cook ugali, githeri, and what? Uji, nothing. South America, they have 300 products out of maize. Why haven't we learned from South America? So that the consumption, you open up the consumption and the farmers would find somewhere to take the crop. Another crop that you are beginning to see a problem is bananas. You never saw people running on the roads selling bananas. That's a serious problem. Most of them have died on the roads being knocked because they wanted to make a sale. What should we do to remove that problem?
About the banana issue, there is an incubation center in Uganda where it's an incubating bananas farming.
Yes.
So what they do is they teach the youth on how they can make wine. I didn't know even you can make wine out of bananas. You can make juice.
Why haven't we done it here?
Yes.
Yeah? Why haven't we done it?
In Kisii.
Did you finish yours?
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I saw that as a big problem to so many farmers, because they will be living on the masses of the people who buy it at whatever price they will buy at a throwaway price.
Yeah.
Then actually on the meat consumption, right now, so many people are doing, or the cows are fattening.
Yeah.
But actually, when you go to the slaughter houses around,
yeah.
you'll really notice there is a problem because actually the prices are still down.
Yeah.
And by the time they are actually, again, the drought has come, the prices are still down. So the farmers will never benefit from whatever they have or
but do you know more than that prices don't go down?
Yeah, I've been there.
Because the meat has a market. It is soft. You know, when we don't, when we sell the meat that we sell, it can remove your teeth. I mean, trying to bite it. These are things that we must know that the customers like and move to another level of market. Now that you know that there are several levels of the market, the 5-star hotels don't want the meat which people cannot cut on the plate, you know, because it's so hard and stuff like that. So you use that knowledge to go to the next level. And we need to educate the farmers to exploit this other market, which is unexploited. Once people begin to taste it, they would actually ask where it came from. That's when you talked about branding. Nobody ever thinks we can brand the meat and be unique out of this. Nobody has ever thought about branding bananas. In the US, you find Chiquita, isn't it? Chiquita, which is branded, and the people look for Chiquita. But we have never thought of branding our bananas. Let him finish.
Just to quickly help answer the question why that you've been asked.
Yeah.
One perspective, just to add to the conversation, because I find there are multiple reasons why a situation can be in the way it is the fact that a lot of people are still in the food, clothing, shelter race in Kenya. And when you're stuck thinking about where my next meal is going to come from, where school fees for the kids is going to come from, where medical, you can't innovate, you know? And for a lot of entrepreneurs, you find even the investment opportunities that are coming to Kenya, even if we're in the tech space, you know, that's known as Silicon Savannah, it's nothing comparable to what they get in the West, whereby for us, we're given investments of like $25,000 to start a company that will hopefully be the next, you know, Facebook killer or something like that. And with $25,000, you can only run a company for like 6 months before you have to start thinking, how can this company be profitable? Yet you'll find comparable companies like Twitter, WhatsApp, and the rest were not profitable for like 5 years before they were bought off, you know? If we can change that model whereby the farmers, the technology experts, all these other companies who have the solutions, because like you, I believe we have the solutions. Just the same way you've seen through big data, you've identified the gaps in beans and in meat. We also saw the gap in leather. The fact that we don't produce premium leather, and yet there's a huge market for luxury leather, whether it's to make shoes like Jimmy Choo's or handbags, or even the interiors of cars, you know, the Rolls Royces and stuff like that. But until we can fix food, clothing, shelter, and know that we have money for the next 2 years, 3 years, just to keep, like you're saying, reiterating the problem until we come up with a perfect solution, we will keep asking that question, why, and be stuck with the same question.
This is what we've been talking about, clusters. If we created an IT cluster in, say, Concert, it would be easier for the universities to be near you. So when you need research, they do it knowing they will benefit from it. And then there will be a bank that understands that you take the risk together. If you succeed, you succeed. If you fail, you fail. We don't allow failure in our... If you read the startup nation, Israel, they reward people who fail because they are tempted. In Kenya here, you go to jail if you are tempted to do something. So there are so many areas where we need to correct so that we can be as competitive as any other. Let her ask you to what is it?
So, hi, I'm Duncan Moshiri, student at University of Nairobi. So we had this idea, our classmate and I, on how the education systems should be. We should not be having civil engineering Nairobi, civil engineering JKUAT, civil engineering KU. The idea was we pick a county, let's say Machakos, then we drop all engineering there. May it be civil, electrical, telecoms, you name it. As long as it has the name engineering, we take it to, let's say, Machakos. Then we pick, let's say, KU. We say this is going to be the school of business. Any type of business that we want to study, financial, BCom, you name it, it's going to be done there. Take University of Nairobi. Any type of education that you want to do will be done there. So from this, we are saying like now you'll be able to even to handle these numbers because you'll be knowing we have 3,000 university, 3,000 students who are doing engineering, and they're supposed to graduate this year. So we know we need a market for 3,000 people. And in case of any fracas, let's say strikes and all, we know it's only this year which was in school during this period. So in case of punishment, it's only this year which is going to be getting a punishment. Then on top of that, we came and realized that not only will this enable us to manage how the education is, it will also help us manage how we are going to do, let's say, analysis. Because we know if we want any engineering assistance, we'll all go to Machakos because this is where all the brains in Kenya have. And then all industries which are doing with engineering will take themselves closer to where they have their resources. Then that will lead us to grow in clusters. And the only way we'll now, from that, we'll now start having competitions between counties themselves because we don't want only engineering to shine. We want us even doing BCom to shine. So that with the competitiveness between counties, we'll be able to grow as a nation. And that's the only way that was like the concept that we are looking at. And on top of that, a friend went to Rwanda and came back and he was telling me how the government gets information. You go to a university, you tell these guys, okay, so you guys are doing civil engineering, but the government wants data on how, which traffic is on Thika Road. Then he goes and picks, okay, so for your fourth term, as your attachment duty is, you're going to go to Thika Road, this section, this group of you will go to this section and all that. And now to make these people serious about it, you're told, what you'll get, the data that you give, should be accurate because it's going to go to your exams. Yeah. So the fact that you mention exams in between makes sure that people actually work on it. And top of that, the government has excessive data. The government of Rwanda usually has excessive data, made from the engineering perspective, business, agriculture, because the people doing agriculture, they usually send to farms. Let's go to Rift Valley tomorrow. You guys are going to look at farms which are dealing with maize. How are they doing? What is the margin that you're making and all that? So we are talking about getting big data. It's not that we can't do it. We already have the resources that we require. We have students who are close to school, go home, disturb parents. These are the things that we should be like as a government. Because all you need is like you give the person fare and lunch.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth. I am a high school graduate. I'm waiting to start university this year. I actually wanted to expound on what he had said, something about why. And actually that's the same thing because I think mostly in our society right now, people are looking at their basic needs rather than stuff like bananas, what she said, bananas providing wine. But however, I also want to ask you a question. What are you doing to ensure like people know all about this? Because you said a lot of things I didn't know, something like the how Africa could be exporting food to Europe and a lot of other things I did not know. But so what are you doing to ensure that people know this so that they can be able to open up some more and come up with all these ideas?
It is what I'm doing now.
Okay, yes, but apart from anyone, like, because not everyone attends such forums.
Yeah, we put it on YouTube, and if you can tweet it and do whatever, it gets to a much wider audience. Maybe at some day we would improve this and put it in a platform that people understand. A mass of voices.
Professor.
Yes.
I think this discussion is very interesting. I'll take you back to UNCTAD,
yes,
where we talked about lack of information, dissemination to the people who are supposed to have it.
Yeah.
And the story of the European Union. And this is a challenge to the tech community which is here. I do research, and one of the biggest challenges I find, Google has gone as far as being able to help us get information, that search. But I think now the other side of it is information aggregation. So you still have to go down and sift through, like you find an article which looks like it's really interesting to you, but then you have to, like go through like 10, 20 of them. So now working backwards is a big challenge. And it's the same challenge that we are having with information. How do we do information aggregation in terms of closeness? So like if we have information about beans, you do a Google search, you'll get maybe 100,000 results. But
no, you as I said, most of the, and we discussed it recently, I sit in a board, a UN board called Global Pulse. How do we force NGOs? They collect better data than government because they are on the ground. How do we get that data and use it for decision making? I told you, if you look about meat in this country, USAID has a report and a very detailed report on meat. Maybe government doesn't have as good a report as that one. So the numbers are all over the place. We need to find a way of, as you said, to aggregate and say this is the source of information.
Yeah, so maybe Duncan, you should come up with a search engine that aggregates the information.
All the data.
Yeah.
Yes,
And my final comment is still a challenge to the group which is here. How can we use technology to solve the current issue we have in education? The violence and the arsonist attacks and stuff like that.
I will answer that.
This is just going back a bit to what you said and the mention of the Chiquita banana and the branding. I just wanted to clarify because I think it's quite an interesting depiction of the value chain issue. Like Chiquita is an American-owned company, but they grow the bananas entirely in Central America. So it's in Costa Rica, Honduras, I think Dominican Republic too. So you have this like weird kind of situation where it's an American company, which is probably making most of the money off of it. The branding is important, but at the same time, that's still a kind of replication of the same sorts of issues with kind of Western-dominated, making money off of that sort of stuff.
We need to create our own brand. Let me say something about. He has raised a very strong thing. What is emerging is that there was a tradition that exams could leak every year. And I think the new administration just ruffled everything, by removing the top people at the examination council and removed other people. And that disoriented the corruption networks. And as a result, there is protest where they are banning schools all over the country. The question is, how should we use technology to deal with this? Actually, what the ministry should have done, instead of going head-to-head in terms of fighting, is to do what most exams have done nowadays, to give random questions, meaning students would go and you probably would answer. Number one question can be 100 different types, but similar. And students could do that. We avoid the paper and say we would give tablets for exams. So you click and you get a random question. They cannot cheat. They cannot cheat. But we have not, we have not, yeah.
Okay, my name is Banda Johnson.
Yeah.
I'm a JCOT student, CBD.
Yeah.
So I also saw a minor problem among university students, whereby people are being taught how to do things, but people are not being taught how to come up with a problem. A good example, like I'm an ICT student, I do BSIT, whereby I see people are flossing with the skills rather than coming up with solution. Even I saw the problem here I have. People say I'm a programmer, I do this and stuff, I do this, but they're not coming up, they're not telling you what they will do or coming up with a solution. So I think that people should be taught how to come up with a solution rather than flossing with the skills, the ICT.
Actually, the research that the professor is assisting me to do is on the area of creativity. You know, what is source of creativity? For instance, like the techies, you know, the guys I know here. I mean, there's a paper that was written that one of the weakest links about the tech sector in Africa, not just in Kenya, is that either we are ignorant of our users, because what we give our users is extremely weak. You know, so that part of creativity, like, how do you challenge, you know, innovators before you even start that journey of innovating or creating something new? What are the considerations that you need to do? And I'm hoping I'm going to find maybe a few answers that probably will help you.
The gentleman, now I want to give the people who have not asked. I will give you eventually, but let him ask, yeah.
So my name is Ndiga. I work for Andela. But my concern is about the farmers and how we are supposed to be disseminating the information. Top of our mind right now is we need to come up with a strategy and deliverables and action how we are supposed to be disseminating this information to the farmers. You talked about Twitter, you talked about Facebook, you talked about YouTube, but how many farmers have access to Twitter and Facebook and start? So what if we tap into the community-based organizations in the 47 counties? There are very many. And actually give them deliverables and tell them, hey, we are working with you to be giving you this information, and this is how you're supposed to be disseminating it to these farmers. And then to the banana menace, I don't know whether you guys know about what Twiga Foods is doing. They are selling almost 70,000 bananas every day. They are increasing their chain into onions, tomatoes, avocados, and stuff like that. So I think it's something, if you look into the distribution channel that Twiga Foods is actually solving, it's something that, you know, in the near future, you won't be seeing those people actually trying to make a sale of bananas in the streets. Thank you.
How many of you can name 5 products out of banana? Banana cake, crisps, wine, yeah, ice cream, yogurt. Why can't we make a smoothie, a banana smoothie day, and we ask the president to say we have a national banana smoothie? Everybody takes 1 glass. We can finish all the bananas, isn't it? Instead of having the menace on the streets. On the streets. Yes.
My question, comment is like related to his point on creativity. Yeah. We've been talking a lot about innovators and how youth can innovate. But just back to his point, whenever we're talking of innovators, these are people who have usually already gone through the school system, so we expect them to be innovators.
Not necessarily.
Okay, yes, yeah. But generally, they've gone through basic education, right?
No.
Okay, fine. Let me ask the question. So my question is, before we start talking about innovators, what is the process we need to do for them to become innovators? Like, can we teach creativity? Back to his point where he was saying people in the iHub are, forgive me for using this example, are showing off their skills like I'm a programmer. But I was thinking, that's just 844. I'm number 1. But the question is, what do we do with that number one? What do we do with that skill? So my question is, whether it's technology, agriculture, how do we create a culture of creativity such that people use whatever they have to actually build something?
There is one problem. I think our universities have a problem. There is a course which is taught in all universities in the US, and that's creative thinking or design thinking. Just to think differently from the standard. If we introduce that course, it's just to knock your head and say, don't always think this way, you can think differently. And we have tried to bring that course. I think we have managed to get it through to the School of Computing, where they will be doing design thinking. We don't introduce those courses, like asking, what else can you do with this? And the people begin to say many things. And of course, there is knowledge that has been lost on some of the things the way we used to do them. Nobody records that. So we need to reevaluate our culture, that we just look at things as is, that this is given. We need to ask questions, why can't we do it this differently? I think the schooling system has to change in that way. Then you begin to see people thinking much more differently than they have thought before.
I just want to add on that. My name is Yuri Zambarakchi. I'm a student at Triara University. Yeah. I've actually taken a creative and critical thinking course. Yes. And I don't have a very positive attitude towards the way that course was taught in particular. The teacher spent about 15 weeks. Out of the 15 weeks, spent about half of that time speaking in his tribal language and making jokes. He felt that storytelling was somehow creative. And then, yeah, so I didn't understand half of what the course was actually about. And I think the other part of it is that there was nothing practical there. It was still, at the end of the day, rote learning. What he did was literally dictate and take notes on the theory of the creative and critical thinking process. So the fact that even in my university, which is supposedly nurturing innovators, half the process is just someone talking at you and then reading from a textbook, says that the mindset where you can learn to be creative simply by talking about creativity instead of actually doing creative projects, creative activities, that hasn't changed anything. And I understand some of the feelings that these people say, oh, I'm a programmer. I'm surprised anyone can show off and say they're a programmer without having a list of things they've actually made. Yeah? There are plenty of problems in society. Half of this conversation has been about those problems, but very little solutions. And that's because you're taught to copy and paste, right? Even at the university level. And I really experienced it because I've studied half my time of education has been abroad and the other half here. So I know what it means when someone tells you what your end-term project is supposed to be. And then in Kenya, it's something completely different. In Kenya, it means, copy from the guy sitting next to you, or copy-paste whatever the first 10 things are that are on Google. Where in our university, the lecturers didn't even bother to ask you how you would present. There were some people who literally never wrote a single word. They presented, a video, or they presented, they literally did a presentation and they brought people in and they did skits and stuff like that. So there are many ways to get the grade other than copy-pasting whatever the lecturer tells you is meant to be the theory. Yeah.
Actually, we have very few schools in this country that have non-traditional ways of teaching from primary. What do you have this system where kids learn Montessori? Yeah? We have not even thought about it, but you find kids who go through Montessori, they end up doing very well when they get into the normal systems, because the practical nature, the methods of teaching.
And about Montessori, they let someone who is 5 years older than the group be in the same class.
Being in the same class.
So they have this open atmosphere. And that's, I wish there was a system like that where you could actually choose which units you can take.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a law student, and the strictness with which they applied, like, okay, you have to take this unit now, and then you take this unit right after. And I'm like, there's no correlation between those units, but you have to stick to the system. Like, what if someone has a challenge in one area, they can skip ahead in something else and come back to it later. So there's really no room to breathe, no room to be creative or think in the educational system itself.
We have a lot of work, a lot of work to do. This side, we wanted to give this side. This side seems to have too many questions.
Let me just add, I also have attended the design thinking class, and they were more critical about our education system. I think we need to change our education system, and we need to teach our kids on our environment, where we are first. Instead of teaching, we need to teach them from the known to the unknown, rather than teaching them from the unknown and then to the known. Like, for example, the reason why most 844s, that is us, I also went through 844, we always think maybe 5 plus 5 is equal to 10.
Tells you which base.
Yeah,
okay.
But 7 plus 3 is also equal to 10. So that's when someone fails, they don't think of other options. There are so many other options which we can think of. And that's why when you give a very simple question to an 844 student, they will think of, that question cannot just be that simple. They will just have to think very hard. Like, for example...
Can I tell you the system I went through?
Yes.
Up to standard 7, we were learning, up to standard 6, we were using vernacular. So standard 7, they were translating to English, which is the exam. And the teacher got frustrated and said, the lake marked D is Lake Victoria. So if next time you find Lake Victoria at C, you will just say D is, that was rote learning. So we are here by God's grace that...
My name is Simon. I'm an engineering student from JKUAT. And I have sort of an answer to your question. So today we've talked so much about agriculture and 3D printing for people with severed limbs, but how many people here are doctors? No?
They were here last time.
Yeah. So my observation is that we are techies and we know how to build products, we know how to make things, and we know that a lot of things are possible. But the reason we can't formulate these ideas is because we are not in the system. If I want to create a health app, the doctor who is at UN, at Chiromo, doing the actual stuff there, is the person who can clearly tell me this is what you're supposed to do for this particular idea. So the problem with creativity is that we have people in Kenya who are techies. They know that stuff can be built, and they know that a lot of things are possible with the mobile and the web platforms and stuff like that. Then we have people who are farmers, agriculture students, doctors, dentists, and stuff like that, but they are not aware that the things that are possible for, a doctor might say that I have this thing in my brain, but I want it to get to people, but I don't know how to do that. And, there's that divide between these people. So if we are talking about creativity, let's go to the people who are doing banana farming and teach them that, they tell them that this is possible with this technology, and, maybe they can come up with a solution from that side. But techies, just being a techie doesn't mean that you have a lot of things in your brain for that. Yeah, observation.
There are many people who have not talked. Can just 1 second, yeah?
Okay, hi, once again. Basically, on what you said, I believe in more on teamwork than one-man army competitions. Because anyway, I'm an 844 student. I've been taught you're either number 1 or not. You're either top 3 or not. It's always has been, how will I beat this other guy? So there's usually this theory of the poppy plant where if one grows up, the rest will try to pull it down. Yeah. So we thought, I was thinking, if we did more teamwork, if I learn on how I can accept your idea before shooting it down, because let's say you did something different, if we are able to accept teamwork, that's the only way we'll progress, because
collaboration.
I will be here and someone else will be there.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is David Kimolo. I tend to agree with him when he said we are not that creative or innovative.
Yeah.
We only talk about how good we are, we floss our skills. I think that's a problem, because many of us, I heard somewhere, the next Bill Gates will not create an operating system, will create something else. So I think we have to embrace that and to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yet.
Okay, thanks, Professor, for those insights. And I think today's discussion has touched on various aspects, from macro level to consumption dynamics. And so I think the question is the place of techies in all this. And I think this is a challenge to the techies. We have the challenge of bridging this gap, be it in terms of information. And I think would hopefully see techies try to explore and take the challenge of creating business models. For instance, getting this information to where it's required, maybe creating solutions around distribution channels, and probably things around that. Yeah. So
can we think out of here how to solve the transport menace? Yeah? There's a challenge. How do we put sensors in these public vehicles, all the sensors, I mean, from smell to everything, such that we know that this bus, the driver is drunk before he goes too far? I said he because there are only he's in.
This road is congested, and how is the other one better? How is the other one a better alternative for you? We also started with initial idea of putting sensors that will detect your motion, and then we'll be consecutively treating after around 5 minutes, and then we'll have a back end that will analyze, then relay the data back to the users. That was our initial idea. And actually going back to creativity, I wouldn't blame the education system, but there's some aspect of it, because the only critical thinking we did was, I think, therefore I am. So in contrary to what you're supposed to be taught, that you have to think outside the box, you're being taught to think the same way that Aristotle maybe thought. I would blame the society as a whole and the parenting, because we've had many cases where the parents say, niliuza ng'ombe ndo nisomeshe ng'ombe ingine. So if I don't get that while collar job, I'm a failure in life to my parents. That's the mentality that we need to change. Because I know.
How many of you who are doing what you wanted to do in college and not what your parents wanted you to do? What you wanted to do and what your parents wanted. Those who are doing exactly what they dreamt to do. Okay, those who are doing exactly what their parents wanted them to be.
They're many. They're just ashamed to.
Yes, which is. How many of you love what you are doing now? Wow.
I think that's a coincidence, because what your parents want to do are usually the opposite of what you want to be most of the time.
Yeah.
Because that's most. Because most of the time, I maybe want to be an artist, but to my parents, a doctor would be better. They want you.
I wanted to be a musician, but I missed it. I missed it. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon to everybody. My name is Felix Mbugwa. I'm an entrepreneur. Now, my comment is based on a question that was directed to Professor about what he's doing about the challenges we have in this country. And he said that is what he's doing today. And I can tell you some of the things I do is out of the interaction I had with him at some point. I don't think he can remember. But I think all the challenges we are trying to throw back and forth, they can be explained in one concept that I was given by some wealthy man in China. And he explained to me about the headlight effect, the concept of the car headlight. And he told me that if you want to drive, let's say, from Nairobi to Thika, all you need at night, all you need to do is, at least you have an idea of where Thika Road is and the direction. And all you need to do is drive and you look at the next, is it 7 feet or something? And you'll actually be able to drive all the way to Thika. But the farthest you could see at any one time is about 25 feet or something. So what we need to do, whether you're a techie or whether you're looking to give a solution in any field, in any industry, is you have to take a step at a time. You have techies who want to build a big system, and they claim that the government agencies and anything is not giving them the information they need. The funny thing is, the same techies build systems, and they will always have version 1, version 1.1, and they even know that they're using Windows, 8, 10, what, but they don't want to give their solution in versions. They want to sit down and they want to come up with the final thing. Someone talked about Facebook, someone talked about Twitter, and they said that they were not profitable. Did they? And they are the same people who read stories about how people started their companies in garages. But the same person is talking about not having enough money to fund a Twitter, to fund a Facebook. So we have a challenge from what the young man said about our parents, our system. But the funny thing is, Daktari has been there. It was very difficult for him to change the system, but he tried. So we are here, we are not yet in government, we are very far off from some of these things, so we can't change it. So start a step at a time. I'll give an example of a company that I'm involved in. It's in the hides and skin business. We started it off like 3-4 years ago with a friend of mine. And the trip that the president did a few weeks ago to Botswana, we were invited. But just because what he talked, I think he left. He said that, why are we not processing the leather? Why are you not doing all that? First of all, it's very expensive. We are trying to do it. But we realize that we have to do a step at a time. So we're exporting the leather to China. And maybe at some point we'll have a tannery. And then after some time, we're going to bid to be supplying the leather to Mercedes and stuff for the interior. So what I have for everybody, whether you're bragging of how good you are, I'm also an investor in the tech space. I run Legibra Solutions. It's a web solutions company. I am not the best. I cannot compete with anybody in this field, and I did IT. But what I've done is I've leveraged the skill that we have in this country. I have some of the best web designers in the country. But what we are doing is we are taking a step at a time. We are not trying to beat Facebook. We are not trying to beat Twitter. We are not trying to develop a system that is already big in the industry. What we are trying to do is we take a company, if it's a shop, we make a very nice e-commerce system for them. So what we are doing is we are trying to help them evolve one step at a time. We are not trying to come up with the next big thing. And that is where the techies are getting lost. Don't try to beat Zuckerberg. Don't try to fight it off with Bill Gates. Don't try to fight it off with Bezos. Just look at the bananas that Daktari is talking about. It's simple, it's branding, it's printing a logo. Then you get a lawyer, and then he's gonna be able to patent or something like that. And then when you slowly start getting your bananas from Kisii, then you get to buy a nice piece of land, grow the bananas yourself. From that point, you can export the bananas because you can actually be able to tell the European countries that you can actually monitor your quality from farm to fork, something like what Kenchik is doing. But you don't want to grow bananas and get from all sorts of farmers, all sorts of pesticides, and you want the people in the US who are conscious of what they eat to buy from you. No, one step at a time. Thank you.
This side seems to be giving wisdom.
Hi, my name is Shem. I'm a system developer. And just on the point of one step at a time, I remember working for a company that built an MVP for 3 years. And they could no longer pay salaries because they kept saying that we want the best. And then had 3 companies that we were to compete with. Basically, we never got to the market. So we kept trying to build what they have. And then in 3 years, we had eaten all the salaries, and so the company could no longer work, so we had to get alternative ways. So that led me to know that it's very important to take one step at a time, especially, and again, most techies have this idea of so-and-so is making it, so I need to do a product like theirs and try to make mine different. Well, without even understanding what those people saw in the first instance before they came up with the idea and started building on it. Well, currently I'm doing software for health, and I'm surprised there's a lot in terms of 3D for medical imaging and stuff. Hoping to research a little bit on that. But the most important thing that techies should take into consideration is not a matter of the big thing. It's a matter of a small thing, a small problem at a time, then expanding.
Let me give you 2 examples. The Japanese made a Toyota Mark II or something, which used to look like a Volvo. They had actually taken the Volvo and broke it down to parts, and the different people built to create that vehicle. The Americans laughed and said, is this a vehicle or something? But they kept on improving it to the extent that the Japanese vehicles now compete with the German vehicles. If you look at the latest of, I think, Infiniti, or what is the luxury model of Toyota? Lexus. It looks like a Mercedes. It's because they kept on improving. Koreans brought vehicles here called Hyundai. The first ones came to Kenya. People used to laugh that they would brake on the road, but they have improved to the extent they are there. The Indians brought Mahindra. They have improved. Now there is actually Mahindras on the road. The import of this is that don't ever think that you would get a perfect product to take to market. You would go with that product, and the customers would help you perfect it to the level where you become very competitive. And that, I think, that is the story that you are talking about. So I think we can finish here, or one, and the lady at the back. Then we.
Hello, I'm Jodom, Konuko Jodom. I'm an engineering student at the University of Nairobi. This talk has been very productive, and okay, I've learned a lot from this. Now, I have one question and one comment. My question is, example to the gentleman to my right and to your last statement about going to the market. We are developing a product for transport in our city. The real question I want to ask is, at what point there's that fear of getting out there with their solution? Okay, it could be version 0, but at what point do you just decide now, let me take this out there and then I'll see what happens? How do you overcome that fear and then you take it out there? And then my next question is about, we've talked much about creativity, about our education system and how we learn not to be creative or to be creative from that point. So my question is there a specific way of learning creativity, or how about the divergence bit of it? Yeah, thank you.
All right. The first question, I normally say, take a glass of changa and just put the thing out there. Don't care. Because you will never be perfect. I think the courage to take something, I think you need to try with friends. Does it solve some problem? Ask them openly and talk to a few customers. Once you get customer number 1, you are actually beginning to penetrate the market. You cannot fear like men who are getting to 40 and still they are fearing, what if I marry someone who will kill me in bed? And that is true. You know, you are getting a stranger into your room. They can kill you. So, but one day you will say, I must do it anyway. So those are the things you just have to decide that let me move on. The second question was on creativity, isn't it? And what was the...
We were talking about creativity, so I'm wondering if whatever channels there are to learn about creativity now, you are coming from a need for system, and you really have these solutions you want to build for the world.
Don't start saying you are coming from an 844 system. That is a false start. With so much knowledge through the MOOCs, which can wipe out that 844. There are so many things that I learned from several universities by watching some of these massive open online courses. You learn something. You learn something. I joked here that we did more rote learning than you people in 844. But somehow we are here talking that if you are able to read and you are able to read several other books, your mind is not what you think it should be, like that of 844. I think you should now say I'm beyond that because I can acquire knowledge from other places, from other places. The teaching methods that we have are totally hopeless in most cases because we don't actually look at. And I can tell you so many kids who could not do mathematics because of the method that the teachers used. And when they began to use like Khan Academy, they are now majoring in math because the method was more friendlier. And that's why I'm saying that at this age, we should not even say change the system or what, but the opportunities are there to make you Einstein. If you had time to go through the amount of knowledge that is in this thing through Google is this much, which would make you something totally different from what you think. And you could look at several creative projects here, and you learn 1 or 2 techniques, 2, 3, 4, and you find that you are doing it without knowing that you are doing it. And that's what I actually think about. There are several things I actually go through in here to find out what it is. And I've actually spent time, even some engineering things. I can argue with you engineers and you wouldn't beat me. on it because I because because I actually spent time to go through that. The last question.
Yes, thank you. My name is Joy Mutiso. I'm a slinger / entrepreneur. And the first thing I wanted to address in terms of what I felt about how the conversation was going was in terms of agriculture. I worked with the World Council of Credit Unions, and they funded a circle that wanted to like revolutionize what it is, what we understand in terms of agribusiness, and they went all over the country helping people and all that. What I found out was that there's a need for the tech people in this, let me say, the way you guys think. I could call it in music a genre. You want it to be a certain way, but people go down and then they get that information, but then you guys haven't come up with something that will revolutionize not just 1 or 2 or 3 farmers, but I want something or someone to come up with something that will revolutionize the whole country, because we need help in Garissa, everywhere. Can we somehow come up with a Zuckerberg who can be able to do that? One thing, like a whole Safaricom for the whole country. That would be fantastic. And the other thing is about the creative space. If you need someone to be creative, or if you want to be creative, find out what this other person has done, go do it, or get a mentor, and then sit under him. And don't just go and talk to him. Go and enter his business. Tell him, okay, let me be an employee. Let me run with you. Let me see what you're doing, and then try as much as possible to master everything that he has. Get into his atmosphere, get to know his friends, get into his circles, and then from there, don't take his business. Make sure you show him that you can, but you won't. This is what I find the problem with Kenyans is. It's not only in Kenya, it's everywhere. That you think that we're not doing the same thing. We are. That's why there's Twitter. That's why there's Facebook. It's just a copycat of the other. Just one person thought to think about it a little bit different. What I want to challenge everybody is that make your mentor like almost like go gaga, that, oh my God, this is a person I thought I taught I must be stupid because he's fantastic at what he's doing, not what I am doing. So for me, I think that's what I really want to, I don't know, show you. Yes, and one other thing about the skills in this country, the young man has left. Even in America, even in every country, they are trying to tell other people that you need to get more skills, more skills. Don't ever think it's just in this country. Yeah, that's what I can say. The British Council have done somewhat of a survey regarding that. And what I'm trying to do currently is just hopefully give us, that confidence into this country, and also probably it'll trickle down to the economy, that you already have the resources that you need, you already have the skills that you do need. Understand that Zuckerberg and even, I'm forgetting his name, but most people who do tech amazing things never really finished probably even college. Maybe some of them even lied. Maybe they never even passed high school. You never really know. Just whatever it is that you have, in the wise words of one person, take whatever it is that is in your hand and do whatever it is that you can be able to do, but make sure it's great and outstanding, not only to you, but to every person that you think that matters to you. And then they'll think that you're smart and they'll be able to fund everything. Just imagine what UN can do if you do that.
Okay, we finished.
Hello guys. My name is George. I'm a mobile developer. There's an app we did back in 2014, with a colleague of mine, similar the one you said to detect a drunk driver. But we tried pushing it through the Ministry of Transport. We were told kuja kesho. The problem is, are we ready to
use it?
Yeah, to use it, because I did an intern in a certain government organization. There was this old guy who he pressed. I didn't know what he pressed, but the monitor came anti-clockwise. So he turned the monitor upside down to use it. So when we were at break time, he called me kando and told me, si unisaidie hapa. So I'm asking, are we ready up there? The guys up there in there.
Actually, when you disrupt, you don't need permission to disrupt. Of course, if you sold the solution to police, they would refuse because they want to be out there to catch drunkards. But if you disrupt by eventually having it as one of the parts in the car, and then we say there is no need for police because the car will not start. I think some countries, I think it's you know which what I'm talking about. I think it, yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah. It can't. Yeah. Even yes. The alcohol content in your whatever, and the vehicle stops. So there are some solutions. Let's get the disruption first. Then we go to the owners and say, if you really don't want to see accidents on the road, try this. We'll start with one. I think I pushed one with cost pass on payment. We can work together, and you disrupt the whole system. You would never expect that you can disrupt the systems that exist. Those who are in place would oppose it. So let's present it like here, then we work together and see how to get a solution. So let me thank everybody. I would want to see that we go through this 3D print because it provides so much opportunity. And actually doctors are beginning to see the benefit of using 3D before they do the surgery on the patients. And it's a fairly easy thing like taking a photo by printing it and actually discussing it. We must simplify to that level so that some of the people can find jobs working with doctors closely. That's my passion to this. You can go and look at prosthetics in 3D print prosthetics, 3D pre-operation, and you can see on your own before he comes to make a presentation. You can have good questions to talk to him next time when he comes. I'm hoping that next month he should come. So I thank you for coming, and hopefully we'll see you again.